Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And last year, around the time of the Tier 3 selector for the 5-year anniversary, I made a video listing the 3 best CTPs that I thought for every single Tier 3 character. Not only the 800 CCF ones, but all the other ones too. And that video was a big hit. So I thought, you know what? It's been about 11 months. Why don't we do that video again? We have so many more Tier 3s now. We have new Tier 3s that cost way more than 1600 CCF. Hello Sentry, hello Null. So I want to give you my top 3 picks. The top 3 best CTPs, in my opinion, for all of the Tier 3 characters available to us right now. Of course, as always, these are just my opinions, standard PSA. You don't have to agree with them. This is not the only way to build characters. Give you another heads up, another sort of PSA. In general, I tend to mostly value PvE content because most of the game modes in Marvel Future Fight are PvE based, and so the PvE CTPs will be more beneficial for the majority of your roster. Additionally, love that word, most characters are not needed for PvP because the ban lists are not very aggressive. Like right now, the ban list in Vibranium, there are no characters banned. So you really only need a handful of characters for PvP. However, I will sort of identify those characters specifically by giving their best or second best CTP a sort of explanation. And I'll explain all the CTP choices for all of the Tier 3, so don't worry about that. But keep that in mind that I do, you know, the majority of the game, like 70–80% of the value I place is on the PvE CTP side of things. Also consider the fact that I'm considering the characters for all available content, not just for one particular game mode. Obviously, if you really value Alliance Conquest or you really value Timeline Battle or Squad Battle, you may make some different choices for characters as far as equipping more regens or more authorities or more insights. So I'll sort of try to take that in consideration, but it will depend on who you are as a player, and that's where you're gonna have to use your own judgment. So we're gonna start off with the combat types. We're gonna go Combat, Blast, Speed, Universal, just to keep it sort of structured. So starting us off, number 1 here is Apocalypse. Now, we're going to hear this a ton throughout the video, so I'm just going to lay it down flat here. Obviously, the 3 best CTPs in the game are Rage, Energy, and Regen. You can see of that split, 2 of those are for PvE, and 1 of them is for PvP. That is sort of indicative of not only how I see the game, but how the majority of the value is going to roll out. So for Apocalypse, that is almost the top 3 best CTPs. In my opinion, I think the best CTP for Apocalypse is Rage. I think the second best is Judgment, and I think the third best is Regen for PvP. Now, Judgment can actually be better than Rage for elemental characters who are PvE focused if you have enough Pierce. Some people think that even if you have 0 Pierce, Judgment is better than Rage for Apocalypse. I kind of disagree, and again, it's just my personal opinion. I haven't done, you know, extensive testing, and actually one of his skills doesn't actually deal mind damage, but that's okay. But yeah, Rage and Judgment are really going to flip-flop for most characters, whether you have 0 Pierce, which I think makes Rage better for characters like Thor, etc. And then if you have a lot of Rage, like 8, 10 plus, Judgment will be better for these elemental characters like Thor, like Ghost Rider, etc. Actually, I'm not 100% sure about Thor, but definitely for Ghost Rider. So yeah, for Apocalypse, I think it's Rage, Judgment, Regen for PvP. Next up, we have Black Panther. Not a good Tier 3. I don't recommend giving him any CTP at all, but if you had to, I would say Rage is the top choice. Then Energy, he has a pretty decent proc-friendly rotation. And then third, I would say Judgment, because despite how bad he has a humongous HP pool. Huge. So if anything, he can help you stall in some conquest fights or something like that, you know? He at least has the big stats. He doesn't have the big damage or the big effects, but he does have the big stats. Another character that has the big stats here, that's actually not a combat, he's a blast type, Captain America, but I listed him as a combat in my list here. For Captain America, it's very similar. I think Rage is the best option for him for most content. Then if you want to go PvP, I would say Regen. And then if you wanted to go a little bit different for PvP because he doesn't have any penetration, I would say you could go with the Destruction. Again, that's more PvP focused, but it can sort of work. Moving back over to the actual true combat class, next up we have Crescent. She has dropped off a ton. She's not much value anymore, but you could still give her a Rage if you wanted her to excel. However, she has a very good leadership for ABX, Squad Battle, Null, and Mephisto World Boss Legend and World Boss Ultimate, so you could give her an Insight. Insight would actually be my second choice for Crescent. And then my third choice would be a Regen. Again, humongous HP pool for her, like Black Panther and Captain America, so you can take advantage of that tankiness that she would get. Next up on the list, we have Hulk, literally the tankiest character in the game. This Chris Traeger impression is getting a bit too on the nose. But yeah, for Hulk, I would say Regen first because of his HP and how his damage scales off of HP. You can see it says physical damage 27% of HP. It's not physical attack, it's HP. So you don't want to give him physical Uru. You want to give him HP Odin's Blessings and HP Uru. Now, if you don't give him a regen, Rage is actually probably the second best choice for him, to be honest. Don't go with Refinement, because he needs the guard break immunity. And then you could actually go with Destruction, because like other characters, he doesn't have penetration on any of his skills, so he actually kind of needs it, and he kind of struggles against characters who can put up immunity and invincibility and stuff like that until he can one-shot or build up to his tier 3, which then does have penetration. So that is it for Hulk. Next up, we have Mr. Fantastic. Kind of fallen off these days, but I would say Rage, Energy, Regen is the standard best for him. He can work with a proc. It's a little bit difficult, but it definitely can work. And he's got a ton of hits on Fantastic Punch, which makes Energy good for that chain hit synergy. Next up, we have Namor. That's not Namor. Next up, we have Namor, also kind of fallen off, not as much as Mr. Fantastic, but definitely slowed down a tick compared to other combat types. I would say for Namor, it would be Rage, Judgment, Energy. Unlike Apocalypse, I don't think he has any PvP value. Energy is going to be hard to use him with, but it can work. I got to go through these pretty fast, by the way, guys. Next up, we've got Venom. Venom is very, very good with either a Rage or an Energy. I would put Rage just slightly ahead of Energy, but it's very, very close. And then third for Venom, honestly, you could give him a Insight. It's not the best with the second best, of course, but a lot of times people end up using Venom as a support, as a striker for World Boss to heal. And if you're not going to use him as a striker for World Boss Legend to heal, you could use him as a character in your team to drop heals and then switch and then heal up, right? So you can sort of consider the Insight providing that value. And he also heals you when you get hit as part of his uniform bonus. So it's sort of a 2-in-1. Again, not the best choice, but it's sort of an out there pick because I don't think he really has much PvP value. Next up, like Venom, we have Carnage. Unlike Venom, I think Carnage is a little bit better for PvP content. He has a few more weapons up his sleeve that can help. So I do think that his best would be Rage, Energy, Regen rather than Rage, Energy, Insight. Last but not least, for the combat types, we have a Wolverine. Pretty sad these days, not anywhere near a top tier character. But I would still say best case scenario because of the HP, because of the healing. Regen is the first option, then Rage. Then honestly, you could slap an Insight on him. If you're just going to use him in World Boss Legend on a team for a team-up bonus, because he does have a lot of team-up bonuses because he's a very popular dude, yeah, you could definitely do that. He has a ton of team-ups. He's a very popular dude. So yeah, an Insight would not be so bad for Wolverine, but it is still the third best CTP option for him. Moving on to the blast types, we start off with another mutant, Cyclops. For Cyclops, Insight is now basically the first option for him. Cyclops is not going to be able to carry you in any endgame content, so Insight is kind of a good idea because he's a support type and it feeds into his leadership / support. However, that's the first option. If you don't want to go that route, Rage or Judgment. I put Rage a little bit ahead of Judgment again for the same reasons as a lot of other characters, but it's really up to you with what you have. But yes, all of his damage is elemental, so he can benefit greatly from the Judgment, although he doesn't have a lot of chain hit damage like some other elemental type characters. Next up, we have Doctor Strange. My picks for him would be Rage, Regen, and then honestly, Insight. Yeah, believe it or not. Up next, very, very similar to Doctor Strange, we have Iron Man. Now, unlike Doctor Strange, Iron Man is very mediocre in most content, but I would still say Rage, Regen, Insight for him. Now, the reason why I say Rage Regen is because he's better for PvE than he is for PvP, but he has a decent heal and he has a shield effect, so the Regen actually synergizes with that. And then I say Insight because he's very, very fast. He's one of the fastest, if not the fastest character as far as moving around on the screen. So if you need to run away against Mephisto, that's your guy. And he also has some nice team-up bonuses with characters like Medusa, Luna Snow, etc. He has actually a lot of team-ups, actually more than Wolverine probably. And so Insight would actually be not that bad for him. Coming up next, we have Jean. I know she can also be a universal. For Jean, I think the best CTP is actually Regen. I don't think it's Greed anymore because she just can't survive a hit from a lot of these characters anymore. So I do think Regen is the best, then Greed. It's the lone character on this list that gets, well, one of two lone characters on this list that actually gets Greed suggested at all. And then third, I would say Authority. I wouldn't actually put Rage anywhere for Jean because even with the Rage nowadays, she really can't do anything. She can do things. She can do like stage 1 or 2 of Null or whatever. And if you have lots of Pierce, she could do more. But to me, giving her a Rage would be a waste. Like, sure, you could give a really nice engine to a really beat down car and it'll go faster, but why? Right? You kind of got to ask yourself why. You don't want to give the 13th player on your bench in your basketball team the best pair of shoes. You probably want to give the best pair of shoes to the guy who's the best player on your team, or the second best player, or even the 5th best player, right? So that's sort of the logic here with not even recommending Rage at all to Jean Grey. And of course, it pisses off some Jean Grey simps. Next up, we have Magneto. Now, I would suggest Rage first for Magneto, although he's not that great for PvE content. He's actually pretty good for Null. He can do up to stage 9 Null with double support with 6% Pierce. But next, I would suggest Insight for Magneto because of the leadership. And then finally, Authority for just being an annoying guy with tons of iframes in Alliance Conquest. Up next, we have Professor X. Again, very similar with all these elemental types. Rage first, Judgment second, and then I would actually go Authority third because he doesn't have enough HP to make a regen work. You could do Insight for the support because he has a decent leadership. It's 20% all attack for mutants. It's better than nothing, but yeah, Insight is like a distant third if you don't go Authority. Next up, we have Scarlet Witch. Now for Scarlet Witch, again, Rage first, Judgment second, and then Regen third. She has a decent shot at some PvP content in like a middling tier, so that's why you recommend, or I recommend Regen third. Next up, we've got Sharon Rogers. Energy first for this girl. Absolutely, always energy first. Rage second, believe it or not, and then I would say Authority third for some PvP action. Pretty repetitive at this point, guys. But moving right along to Star-Lord, I would say Rage first, Insight second, to take advantage of that juicy leadership, only to blast types, keep that in mind. And then I would say Authority third, again, for some PvP action, because he has a ton of iframes, and he would just be very annoying, but he just doesn't have enough HP to take advantage of a regen's value. Next up, we've got Storm. I have an energy. I think this is the third best option for Storm. I think that the first two best options are Rage and then Judgment. Again, for all of these elemental characters, you can basically swap what I'm saying for Rage and Judgment and put Judgment first and Rage second if you have enough Pierce, or if you just have done testing yourself and you prefer it. But you have to sort of keep in mind that no Pierce can actually make Judgment worse, or Pierce makes Judgment better. So if you don't have any Pierce, Judgment might appear quite a bit worse. Last but not least, for the blast types, we're halfway through, guys. We have Cable. Now, Cable's a little bit trickier. That's why I left him for the end here. I have a Rage. Most people have an Energy. They're both very, very good. I would say Energy is probably better for summer days, and Rage may be better for X of Swords, but they can both work. Obviously, Energy is going to take more precision and more practice. Rage is not. So it's really up to you. Some people will say you can hit higher scores with an Energy, but you have to keep in mind that might be a Mighty or a Brilliant Energy. I'm not even considering Reforged CTPs at all because it gives a huge unfair advantage to Energy and Regen over all of the other CTPs. So yeah, Energy, Rage, Rage, Energy, you can't really go wrong. Third on the list, I would honestly say Authority. Cable's not terrible for PvP. He's not great, but he's not terrible. Going on to the speed types, the only class where I don't have one of the tier 3s. Let's start us off with Ant-Man. Very, very sad man. Yes. I would say Rage first, sadly. Insight second, just for the support buffs for Null and Mephisto. And then Energy third. Destruction is no longer good for him because he's just terrible for PvP. Yeah, it's just not really going to work for him. I guess you could put Destruction third. It really doesn't matter. Again, I wouldn't give him a CTP at all, right? But at this point, I'm not even going to try him in PvP, so this could actually work on someone else slightly better. Next up, we've got Black Widow, and Godzillinator just put out a Black Widow video recently that's really good, so I suggest you go watch it. I actually haven't seen it yet, but my recommendations for Black Widow are Rage first, then Energy, then possibly Greed. Yeah, again, Greed would only be for PvP, and Greed would only work for PvP if you know you're not going to get one-shotted by characters with iframe ignore. That's a tall order, so you basically have to dodge all sentries, all Luke Cages, all Daredevils, and all Hulks. At least. Possibly all Jessica Joneses. Yeah, it's not going to work. Basically, Greed is like a throwaway third there. Judgment's not going to work for Black Widow, by the way. She only has 1.5 skills, 2 skills with elemental damage. It's not going to work. Next up, we have Deadpool. Didn't get better with the 30th anniversary uniform, but I would say Energy first for PvE content, and 99 of all the regular world bosses, except for Thanos, and of course Supergiant. And then Regen second. Regen, he's actually a little bit better for PvP now. He's still not good enough. He's around where Black Widow is. And then I would say Insight third. Again, he's got a lot of team ups because he's just a popular dude. So yeah, you could just slap an Insight on him and he could be a support type for other characters. It's kind of sad that some of these titans of the game are reduced to Insights, but hey, They serve a purpose rather than serving no purpose. Next up, we have Luna Snow, and of course, Rage and Judgment are going to be the 1-2 combo for Luna Snow. If you don't have either of those, you could try an Energy. Very risky, very hard to play, very annoying, but I have to give you 3 options because that's how the video is structured, so yeah. Next up, we've got Quicksilver. Easy option here. Rage is by far the best option for him because it's so easy to cap his dodge. Energy is a distant second, but it's there. And then honestly, a regen could work for PvP. Next up, we have Spider-Man, and again, I would not recommend giving him a CTP, but if you had to, Destruction is probably still the best option. Or you could argue Rage for PvE content, but he's not very good at either of those things. Then I would honestly say you could just be annoying and give him an Authority and make him stall out Alliance Conquest fights with all the iframes. And then thirdly, you could just give him an Insight and make him a support toon. That's really, honestly, not the worst option anymore for some of these tier 3s until they get a rework. But Spidey will get a rework at the end of the year, so be careful. Yes. Next up, we have Winter Soldier, and barring a Falcon and the Winter Soldier makeover, he's not very good. However, if I had to give him a CTP, Rage first, Energy second, Insight third, because he's got a leadership. He's got a 30% energy attack leadership. Second to last for the speed types, we have Rogue, and now Rogue is a special... she's an exception. She's a special case. Don't give her a Rage first. I know I said that Rage Judgment for like Rage first, Judgment second, but I personally tested it with Rogue with 0% Pierce, and Judgment was always better. So it'll be better for you, and it was better for me no matter what. So Judgment first. Rage is kind of a distant second, so be careful. It's a distant second. It's not that close to Judgment for her specifically. And then you could give her a regen third for PvP because she's actually really good for PvP. Last but not least, for the speed types, we have Daredevil. Now, Daredevil, I personally think was made for PvP. I know some people are going to disagree with me, but I don't think he was made for PvE. So I honestly think regen is the best option for him. Even though I say for the majority of players, you want to focus on PvE content, so even if a character can be 2A, like Sentry or whatever, give them a Rage, and they can still win you 50, 60, 70% of your matches in PvP. I don't feel that way about Daredevil. I don't think giving him a Rage is going to be good because he's just not going to be able to push your content anywhere that's going to be meaningful. So he's, you know, it's like Jack of all trades, master of none. You're giving him 2 dull knives instead of 1 sharp one. So I really think he's actually made for PvP. I really think he can kind of dominate PvP. He can one-shot Sentry. He's actually really good, and he doesn't even need Luke Cage and Jessica Jones to be good in PvP. He can do it with almost any team. So I would say regen first, Rage second, Authority again for PvP third. Might get some disagreements there, but that's okay. It's my list. Last but not least, we have Universals, and we're starting us off with Captain Marvel. Huge fall off for her in every piece of content except for ABX. So Rage is for ABX, Destruction is second for PvP a little bit, and then Authority would be third for her. But yeah, you're really not going to get much outside of Rage, so buyer beware or equipper beware. Next up, we have Odin, and Odin is one of the most notoriously difficult characters to play without a Rage. So without a doubt, Rage is the best option for him. Energy is a distant second, again, because it's just really hard to make it work because he has really awkward cooldowns. And then regen would be third because he's a big beefy boy, so he can do some damage in PvP. Next up, we have Silver Surfer, and I'm going to make the same argument for Silver Surfer as I made for Daredevil. I don't think Rage is worth it anymore. So I would say regen first for Silver Surfer. If you absolutely must make him a 2-way character, then Rage second, and then Authority third. Authority is actually a little bit better. It might actually be second, because there's characters now, Hulk, Luke Cage, etc., who don't have penetration on their base 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skills. So it's really annoying to fight a Silver Surfer with Authority in PvP, for me. Again, I'm not telling you to go slap an Authority on him, but it's not the worst option. It's actually quite annoying. So yeah, I kind of like it. Anywho, Thanos is up next, and yeah, I would say regen first, but he's not very good in PvP anymore, but it's still his best game mode. Authority second, and then, honestly, Insight third for Thanos, because villain leadership. Yeah, pretty tight villain leadership for World Boss Null, DRX, and Mephisto. Next up, we have Thor, another TH character. For Thor, I would say again, Rage first, Judgment second for those elemental bad boys. And then for Thor, third, I would probably say Energy. He can kind of make it work with an Energy if you don't have a Rage or a Judgment, but it's a distant third, whereas Rage and Judgment are quite close for Thor. Next up, we have Black Bolt. Again, ignoring mighty CTPs and stuff like that, I do think Rage is the best choice for him because he just has an awkward rotation and awkward cooldowns, long cooldowns. But yeah, Rage and Energy are very close, so I would say Energy second, and then Regen third. He can honestly kind of do some work in PvP with a Regen, so yeah, it's not bad. Next up, we have Dormammu. Yeah, kind of like Daredevil. He's Jack of all trades, master of none, but like a worse version of Daredevil. So I would say Rage first, Judgment second, Regen third. A little bit disappointed in Dormammu, to be honest, but yeah, I would skew him towards PvE rather than PvP. He's just a little bit too slow, and he's very bad autoplay for PvP, which docks a lot of points for some people. Next up, we have Sentry, and now unlike Daredevil and Silver Surfer, I will say I think Rage is the best choice for the majority of players. Again, you don't have a lot of Rages floating around, you don't have a lot of characters that can do two-way stuff, so Rage on your Silver Surfer is going to make him slap in PvE, and he's able to do 70, 80, 90% of your PvP matches. However, if you want to go full, you know, bad guy mode, Regen is amazing on him for PvP. He basically can't lose if you play manually unless you're facing some behemoth, Kraken, Omega Whale, Lord, Titan of money. And then third would be Energy. I honestly don't really like Energy on Sentry. I know some people do. I know it works. I hate it personally, so yeah. Next up, we've got Ghost Rider. For Ghost Rider, very much like the other elemental characters, I would say Rage first, Judgment second, subject to flip-flop if you have a lot of Pierce, and then Energy third, but it's like Odin. It's a very distant third because it's very annoying to proc with an Energy for Ghost Rider. Him and Odin basically need a Rage, or he could use a Judgment in some cases, but yeah, just beware about that. Next up, we've got Loki. I think Rage is the best for Loki, then Energy, but it's kind of a distant second, and then, I don't know, Destruction third. I just kind of threw this one out there. I don't really think Loki has a place in the game beyond Rage or Energy. So yeah, sort of beware with that suggestion. It's not the best option. It kind of just slapped it together at the last minute, but it is what it is. Second to last here, we have Molecule Man. Has basically no business doing any PvE content, so Regen first, Authority second, and then if you absolutely must twist my arm, my third pick would be Rage. But again, it's a distant third. He is not good for any PvE content, even if you have 20% Pierce. Please be aware of that. He's not good for squad battle. Yes. Cosmic Ghost Rider is better. Yes. Okay. Last but not least, we have Null. Get nullified. I personally think Energy is by far the best choice for him. I do think Rage is kind of a distant second. And then third would be Regen because he's actually very good for PvP. Although he kind of got worse because Luke Cage exists now. And Luke Cage just completely slaughters him. So keep that in mind. Anywho, hopefully this has helped. Sorry I had to go very, very quickly through these recommendations. But there's a ton of tier 3 since last year, man. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.